Welcome everyone. Kevin Carpenter back to talk about Swift. This time with Tim Condon. I think of you as like the master of Vapor. I know there's a lot of people involved in Vapor, but my first experience with Swift was doing your workshop at SwiftCraft, server side, and so that was for my first introduction to Swift. It was a beautiful workshop. Thank you for that.
No, not a problem. Yeah, it's great. I'm very lucky I get to be the public face of a lot of things and take credit for everyone else's work.
Yeah, but that also goes the other way, right? Because when something doesn't work...
That is true, yeah. I'm the one who gets it in the neck, but hey.
What is it? Bug's Life, first rule of management, everything is your fault.
Yes.
So, Tim, for everyone that doesn't know, software engineer and a member of the Vapor core team. He founded Broken Hands, a company specializing in ServerSide.Swift, and Swift team leader Raywin Lynch.
It used to be called raywinlink.com, and it's now called Codeco.
Oh, okay. But more importantly, organizer of ServerSide.Swift, which is why I wanted to chat with him today. Doing SwiftCraft, we love to support other conferences, and saw that ServerSide is coming up here September 27th and 28th.
26th and 27th, yeah.
26th and 27th in London. And so first thing I had to ask, because, when I think Swift, I came to it from the Apple side. I always think of all the apps. And so ServerSide.Swift, what are the top three benefits to you?
Yeah, so Swift has definitely had a background coming from Apple platforms and client apps, but it has a number of very big benefits for the server. So the first one is safety. Swift's always had an emphasis on safety, whether that's things like optionals, which means that null pointer exceptions just aren't a thing in Swift. Memory safety, so you can't have random use after free bugs and stuff like that you get in other languages. And now things like sendable, which is basically removing data races from your apps entirely. So safety is a massive benefit that really puts it ahead of many of the other languages that are traditionally used on the server. That's number one. I can go for more if you want. We can stop there.
No, I absolutely want more, but I was just we were talking beforehand, like, my background's mainly C++, and so I've been learning Rust and I've been learning Swift, and I like the fact that, Swift is doing a reference check or reference counting.
Swift uses automatic reference counting, yeah.
And, Rust has a really great compiler that, does a great job. It's still manual. And then C++, I think I was joking there. We just, get to choose to shoot our foot off. You can write really memory safe C++ if you do it, but that's not what the past 30 years of code has been. We've had to migrate to that. So, hearing even like the sendable part when it comes to Swift, C++ is now just coming up with their sender and receiver pieces. And so it's interesting that you have the newer languages that just have these features that they've learned from, languages that are already out there.
Yeah, I think that's partly a side effect of not having, 30, 40 years of history to deal with, and being able to look at things from afresh. And whereas languages like C++ that have been around for such a long time need to ensure that things still work as they always did, and then also try and work out how to incorporate newer features. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. It tends to be easier to integrate them deeply into the language from earlier days than try and bolt them on the side. But swings and roundabouts for everything.
Yeah, my mind, I was going through thinking about how the committee ends up going, there's a lot of things when the committee's picking what they're going to include and what they're not, that, absolutely no breaking changes. You have to really make sure that, the next thing you add to the compiler isn't going to break something that's all the way back to, C++ 98, for example. And that seems to limit things. So ServerSide.Swift, this is your fourth year, correct?
Yes, this is the fourth year that we've run it.
And so it makes sense to me with, you being so involved in Vapor to run ServerSide.Swift, but then there's also Amazon Smoke and Hummingbird. So it's not like ServerSide is strictly Vapor.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what was, how did ServerSide.Swift come out for a conference for you?
Yeah, so back in 2018, I think it was. Yeah, 2018, kind of 2017 actually, when we started talking about it. I was organising a couple of Vapor meetups in the UK with a couple of other people from the community, a guy called Stefan Summer and a guy called Martin Lasek. And we kind of got talking, and the meetups were quite popular, and ServerSide.Swift was growing and growing. We thought it seems about time to start thinking about maybe we should do a conference. Maybe we should try and do something more substantial than just a meetup and bring all the people in the community together. And that's essentially where the idea was born. So we started planning. The first conference was held in Berlin. It was a really awesome conference. And from the beginning, we always wanted to be kind of framework agnostic. We didn't want to kind of focus just on Vapor. We wanted to make it open to all of the ecosystem because it helps everyone, and it's a good way of bringing people together. And it's really kind of grown from there. So second year was Copenhagen because that's where Stefan's based.
Yep.
And then 2019 was 2018 was Berlin, 2019 was Copenhagen, and then 2022, after the pandemic, we finally managed to come back and held it in London, which was really great. And it's a very unique conference, certainly for the Swift world. A lot of the other Swift conferences tend to be iOS focused or Apple platform focused, which is entirely understandable. Mm-hmm. Whereas ServerSide.Swift is the only conference that's fully focused on Swift on the server, which allows us to kind of do a lot more deep dive and a lot more technical talks that you wouldn't necessarily put at an iOS conference, or you would have as a separate track or something. So we can really dive deep into some of the features of Swift that are predominantly used for the server, or at least predominantly beneficial for the server. I get some really good kind of technical discussions and real world use cases of things that tend to be a bit more open source. So we get a lot of the Swift team talking and coming because it's all open source, because the frameworks and the foundational libraries are all open source. It's a lot easier for them to talk about, as opposed to things like talking about iOS, where generally things are a bit more restrictive because they are based on Apple stuff.
Gotcha. So, I mean, obviously, well, maybe not obvious, but it seems to me like if you're someone that already knows Swift from the app side, then using Swift for server side just kind of makes sense. But if you're also new to Swift, for me, doing the workshop with you at Vapor, it was like, I'm not a GUI person. So it made it a really good and easy way for me to get my feet wet in Swift without all of the other stuff.
Extra stuff, yeah.
So would it be safe to say that the server-side conference would be good for someone even as a beginner in Swift?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a whole range of talks from like getting started with server-side stuff, kind of going into Swift features. And if you've never done any server-side Swift stuff before, there'll be talks for you. And it's a great way to kind of connect with the community as well. And we don't have any iOS talks. We don't have any Apple platform talks. So if you haven't done any of that, then absolutely you're not going to come across any of that anyway.
Yeah, and just saying, but the install of Swift on Linux is like super simple. That was
yeah. Oh, it is. There's been some community efforts over the last couple of years to implement something very similar to Rustup called Swiftly, basically driven by a guy called Adam Fowler, who also maintains Hummingbird, which is another server-side Swift framework. And that's been taken over by the Swift Lang team now, and building it out, and with help from Adam and others to really kind of take it to the next level. But yeah, one line you can install Swift on your Linux box, which is really easy.
Yeah, I don't have a Windows box, but I noticed the install instructions were there for that. It just makes me, I know that when I've talked to other people in Swift, the limitation, if you're doing iOS apps or something like that, you're kind of stuck in Xcode, but it's like, for me, I've been using Visual Studio Code with Swift on Linux, and it works just great. It's like a nice development environment, allows me to work on other code as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another community-driven project that's been integrated into Swift Lang org and taken over, and it provides pretty much exactly the same experience as developing in Xcode these days.
So 2 days of sessions. you got Daniel Steinberg opening for you. I mean, I
We
love,
do.
you
Yep.
know,
Nicest man in Swift.
yeah, yeah. And just I loved his talk. When we got to see him at SwiftCraft. So Thursday and Friday, September 26th and 27th, National Science Museum in London,
Yep.
and
It is a really fantastic venue. So we have kind of exclusive use of one of the flight museums. So our kind of breakout area and catering area where we do meals and breakfasts and coffee breaks and stuff is you like have fighter planes hanging over your head and stuff, and you can see
oh,
different
that's
parts of
incredible.
aircrafts. And then the actual conference is held in the IMAX theater. So we have a full size IMAX screen with very comfy cinema seats. Which makes it very, very easy to read code that's on screen. So
I was just gonna say, like, I can pack a lot of code on that screen.
yeah, I mean the screen. I think the screen is something like 30 meters tall or something like that, which is
Wow,
what, however many feet that is. I can't remember.
like almost 100 feet.
Yeah, something like that. It's enormous. So yeah, you can put as much code on that slide as you want.
That is absolutely awesome. And I have to say, I'm going to be sad that I won't make server-side Swift because I have family coming from Europe that time. But it's like, oh, I love coming to London, and with all the options for hotels and stuff around. I think of other conferences that I go to where it's like you're stuck at a resort that they want $500 a night for a room, and it's just
Mhm.
like, yeah,
Yeah, we're right in the heart of London, very close to Tube Station, so very easy to get to, and you can stay pretty much anywhere. So it should be a good year.
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you giving me a little bit of time this morning or this evening for you to talk about server side, and I hope you have a great conference. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you at Swiftcraft next year.
Thank you very much. I'll see you there next year.
Thanks, Tim.